This Friday sees the close of the SNP government's consultation on plans to legalise same-sex marriage. Opinion polls indicate a clear majority of Scots support the move, but the major faith groups have lined up against it, holding to the view that marriage can only be a union between one man and one woman. Here's David Marsland.
Elton John's 2005 civil partnership with David Furnish was one of the first in Britain. Not known for understatement, he had the ceremony in London's lavish Guildhall. It is not a church. Civil partnerships are not weddings. By law, they cannot be carried out in a religious building anywhere in Britain. Same-sex marriage does not exist on these isles, but that may change in Scotland, and it's provoked a holy row. Religious communities, including the Catholic Church and Church of Scotland, are united in opposition. Against them is a coalition of groups, including Amnesty International and the Equality Network. All have submitted their view to a Scottish Government consultation over what to some is an institution, to others a word.
It's in the ceremony and the type of ceremony that you have. There isn't any difference from a legal perspective in the treatment of a married couple or a same-sex couple from a legal perspective is exactly the same.
Aye, Lawrence.
Aye, Lawrence.
John Maguire and Lawrence Scott Mackay became Scotland's first legally recognised same-sex couple in 2005. Since then, there have been more than 3,000 civil partnerships registered here. There was no mention of religion at this ceremony. Typically, even songs with lyrics referencing God are forbidden. That is not by law.
I think that may be something more to do with the registrar and how they're prepared to conduct the ceremony, and perhaps not contravene anything that the church might be unhappy with. But from a legal perspective, not that I'm aware.
Registrars, though, aren't needed for a civil partnership. It is a legal contract which can be signed almost anywhere. So same-sex couples who want religion on the day can have it, just not in a church, and they can't call it a marriage. That's clearly defined in dictionaries as a union between a man and a woman. But with the Scottish Government tended towards introducing same-sex weddings, that definition may change. Religious groups say if it does, the meaning will be lost.
David Marsland there. Well, to make the case for legalising same-sex marriage, we're now joined by Tom French, Policy Coordinator for the Equality Network, and Ross Wright, spokesperson for the Humanist Society of Scotland. And to defend the status quo, we have John Deegan, Parliamentary Officer for the Catholic Church in Scotland, and Gordon MacDonald, Parliamentary Officer for the Christian Public Affairs charity Care for Scotland. Tom French, why is legalising same-sex marriage so important to you?
Well, for us, this is an equalities issue. So it's about making sure that same-sex couples are treated equally under the law. We believe that lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people should not be discriminated against under the law, and so that's why we want a change. And we believe that the majority of Scots support us on that. So the Scottish Social Attitude Survey last year showed that 61% of Scots support same-sex marriage, and that included 57% of Catholics, actually. So there's a clear majority across the board of support for this move.
John Deegan, it's about equality, it's about fairness.
Well, we don't treat different things as equal, so it's not about equality at all. These are different relationships. There is something unique, there's something natural about the complementarity between a man and a woman. There's something that every society has found, that a man and a woman coming together have children, they look after those children. So two men cannot do that. Two men cannot provide a mother and a father for children. It's a totally different thing. So the equality argument really is a red herring. All of our equality laws are founded on human rights principles. Those human rights principles support that marriage is the relationship between a man and a woman. This really is about satisfying the whims of adults who are prepared to sacrifice the social institutions that protect and support society and really allow children to fare best.
The whims of certain members of society, what do you think of that?
I find it quite upsetting when religious people forget the fact about love. And what this is really about is love, and love is the same. I don't know what John thinks, I don't know if he knows any gay people, but love between gay people and love between straight people is exactly the same. They have the same needs and desires. I have neighbours who have been together 19 years, but they're waiting to have a marriage. They don't want a civil partnership because they don't want second best. They want equality, and they want equal rights and dignity because their love deserves equal rights and dignity.
Gordon MacDonald, we talked earlier there about the Scottish Social Attitudes Survey found 61% support same-sex marriage, only 19% opposed. You're in a small minority. Is it just that you're not keeping up with the times?
No, because different polls show different things. The Office of National Statistics poll showed that the majority were opposed to same-sex marriage and changing the definition of marriage. That was a UK-wide poll, and I think there were questions raised about the Scottish Social Attitudes Survey, about the preamble to the question and the question that was asked as well. So I don't think you can necessarily go with just one poll.
Well, there's two things here. One is about the reality of modern marriage in modern Scotland, and that is that 58% of people get married with secular ceremonies. So although it's interesting for people who have a religious perspective, and they will always get that opt-out and it's guaranteed, I'm a celebrant who conduct marriages, and I have the right to refuse to marry anyone, as likewise any Christian or other faith would have. But the fact is that 58% of people do not get married with religion. They're not interested in the religious marriages are decreasing. So clearly people want to get married. They value marriage as an institution, but they also, same-sex people want to get married because they recognise that institution too, and they want their love recognised.
John Dagan.
But haven't we already seen that even civil partnerships are collapsing, the number of people who go forward for civil partnerships? So why are we introducing another thing? You're talking about
John,
a tiny percentage of society.
Relationships collapsing. Why are the numbers of people in your faith not getting married and the numbers are plummeting? You should be addressing what's the problem in your faith and why people aren't getting it, and leave other people who don't believe in your religions to get married in the way we want.
But I mean, I know it's useful for you to try and separate this as a religious issue, but we're intervening in this because it's a social issue. It's an issue that's important.
There's no evidence from any country that has enabled this that has caused any difference.
Okay, we let you finish.
The evidence always shows that marriage, the mother and father of a child, provide the environment which a child will do better in education, in health, and stability. That is the evidence. Now, we want to have a rationed debate, Ross. We want to look at the evidence. We cannot just impose a secular revolution without actually looking at the evidence.
John mentioned imposing, and one of the things that we've made very clear, the Equality Network and the Equal Marriage Campaign as a broad coalition, is that we believe there should be an opt-out for those religious organisations that don't want to conduct same-sex marriages.
Did you support that opt-out?
John, can I ask you why you want to impose your views on those faith groups that do want to conduct same-sex marriages? Why do you think your views are more important than their religious freedom?
The problem is that they cannot guarantee an opt-out. The Scottish Government cannot guarantee any opt-out. Already the regulations which the Westminster Government are proposing, there are legal questions about whether...
John Swinney has given assurances,
yes, but it's not within the power of the Scottish Government.
I have the legal authority not to marry somebody. I marry people.
It's a reserved matter.
If there were a clear opt-out...
The likelihood is that celebrants and churches and other religious groups will be sued either over the civil partnership issue or over the marriage issue should this go through. So, and the other thing is, marriage is not just a religious thing. Marriage is both civil and religious is marriage. Marriage is marriage. It's not religious marriage and civil marriage, and that's always been the way it is.
Is there a possibility that could end up with messy court cases?
Can I just make a legal differentiation here? All marriages are actually civil. The state is who marries people. People who want to get married apply to the state and then are given permission to then subcontract that to a religion if they want, or go to registrar. So technically all marriages are civil marriages. And that again is another point that needs to be got across. 58% of people in Scotland currently don't get married with religion, and all marriages are technically
I think the broader point is that John and Gordon would oppose this regardless of whether the opt-out was in place and was solid.
Yes, because you're not recognising that we're talking about the social institution of marriage. It's not religion. If the Quakers want to have a blessing for same-sex couples, that's up to them. We're talking about society and what's the impact in society. We know that marriage is good for society, and what we're doing is we're dismantling it.
So we want marriage to be good for people, but we don't want some people who want to get married to get married. Why? What do you think, if gay people get married, what's going to happen? Tell me what's going to happen.
What's happened in adoption? We are not allowed now to run our adoption.
We're talking about marriage. What's going to happen?
Well, I'm setting the scene for you. What happened in adoption? We are not allowed to organise adoptions now because we will not comply with the morality that you have imposed on us in regard to same-sex relationships. It will be the same with marriage. You will call us bigots. We will not be allowed to promote marriage as we do now, as we need to do now for the sake of children.
People will be watching this show and they will be wondering why the hierarchy of the Catholic Church are spending tens of thousands of pounds on a campaign to stop same-sex couples who are in love getting married. And they would be wondering why the hierarchy of the Catholic Church and people like yourselves have opposed every single LGBT equality measure over the last decade. You opposed the repeal of Section 28, you opposed civil partnerships, and now you're opposing this.
Gordon MacDonald, Gordon MacDonald, you come in here.
The reality is that the Equality Network present it as an issue of equality, but in fact this is a symbolic issue. That it's purely symbolism. They have been granted all the rights which married couples have. So it's not about rights any longer.
They don't have the same social status.
It's not about equality.
They don't have the same social status.
It's purely a symbolic thing. And yet the potential implications for people of faith could be huge, with people being taken to court, with people losing their jobs.
Tom French, we heard that family law expert in David Marsland's report saying there's no difference from the legal perspective between a civil partnership and marriage. So why are you agitating for change?
Because if we segregated marriage on the basis of any other factor, if we segregated it on the basis of race, so for example, if we had a situation where the government said, you know, mixed race couples, we don't think you should be allowed to get married, but it's okay because we'll give you this other institution called civil partnership, your own special institution. People would think that was outrageous, they would think that was racist, and it is the same for same-sex couples. Lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender citizens in Scotland deserve to be treated equally under the law, and that's not something that John wants. He wants them to be discriminated
you're revealing where we're
against.
going, you're revealing that you're going to try and say that we're bigots, that we're the equivalent of racists. Now, racism's about separating races to oppress. Marriage is about bringing together a man and a woman for the sake of children.
Do you believe, John, honestly, that lesbian and gay and bisexual and transgender people should be treated equally under the law? And do you believe...
Absolutely.
Do you believe that same-sex couples are no more inferior, are not inferior to mixed-sex couples?
Same-sex couples do not perform in any way the same function that the relationship between a man and a woman. A man and a woman.
Do they love each other?
I love my gran, I love my neighbour.
In the same way. You have no idea. Do they love each other?
Of course, I believe in love. Love is not sex, and that's what you're confusing.
The point is that marriage is not just about the relationship between two adult individuals, it's also about procreation of children and bringing children up. And that can only happen between a man and a woman, and most people will think that a child should have a mum and a dad.
The thing is, you will always have these extreme minority views of people who don't believe that LGBT people should be treated equally under the law.
It's a majority view, Tom.
Today we have seen 61% of people support same-sex marriage. 18,000 people have responded to this consultation.
John Dagan, very briefly, do you think you're going to win the battle in all the major political parties that are back?
Yes, I'm convinced, because when we go to... we've had social conditioning for 10 years, and now when we've started to stand up, we've got 28,000 cards in my office, which we will hand in tomorrow, and we will start to change public opinion when they realise that you're allowed to have this view.
I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much indeed for a very interesting discussion.